Hi there and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Belinda Doveston and I'm going to talk a little bit around how important it is to understand the type of company upon which you serve as well as the particular stage of its growth. And today's session is really going to be about focusing on some of the principles of the contribution compass and how that can help you really interrogate and develop your understanding of the contribution compass and the 8 profiles and apply them to the board that you sit on in understanding the company that you serve, in understanding the business model, and how to unlock the greatest value for that company at any particular point in time. The concept that we're really trying to convey through this webinar is that finding true north requires knowing who you are and where your value lies. A lot of the value in the strategy and direction element of a board can be focused on really getting clear on the business model and unlocking just what it means for the company. Where might the particular opportunities and challenges be for that particular business model, and how do we grow the business given the business model that is in place or should be in place. So really what we're doing today is to really focus on understanding who we are as a company, our essential nature, if you want to say it, our soul and our personality, who we are at our very essence, and how does that impact our business model and the types of teams that we attract, the types of leaders that we expect to be part of the company. So first up, I want to just remind you about a very powerful yet simple model called the Business Model Canvas that you can find in an open source format. You can download the templates, and more is included in the book called Business Model Generation. I really encourage you to study this book if you have not yet done so already. And the Business Model Canvas is one way for us to understand the business model of the organization, which really goes at the heart of this process called strategy and direction. And part of the journey of a new director onto a board is to look at that business model and say, does this business model have legs? Do we understand how we create, capture, and deliver value, which is the business model, with enough depth and clarity that we understand that this business model has got a 10, 20, 30-year lifespan, given that it will evolve with time. So a key part of this process is getting to grips with the business model. You know, as a director, you're required to have a very clear understanding, and certainly we encourage you to think about the business model canvas as a framework, a way of thinking about a business model, and of course there are many other ways. In really getting to grips with the business model and understanding how we create, capture, and deliver value, I also wanted to then share with you another idea, given that we've already looked at the STAR management compass and how this compass is a tool for executives and managers to guide and develop the different building blocks or different aspects of business management. And so this might be a particular way that you also look at the business model, although it's slightly different in its application. Yet is another tool or framework that we've given you as a board to understand the role of the business. Now, the reason we bring these two together is that the business model itself has a particular personality or essence. And a particular business model will have particular facets and focus areas that it needs. Perhaps a very brand-rich or brand-dependent business model will mean that as a management team, the management team needs to focus a lot on developing the aspects of getting the message to the market, for example. So bear in mind that a company has an essence, has a key focus that it needs to deliver. So then let's take it another step forward. You've already had some exposure to the contribution compass. We've already shown you how the management compass ties to the enterprise governance compass. Here's a picture to show you how the contribution compass fits on top of the management compass. So these are all layers. Imagine like cogs of a wheel that are all synchronized. And if we consider one aspect, we can start to understand the different levels of the business. So what I'm going to talk about today is talk about the natural energy or the personality profile of the company itself, and then very briefly go through the different stages of growth, of life stages as we call it, that a company goes through in iteration as it goes through higher levels of development. So if we have a catalyst profile company, or a company that has a catalyst as part of its business model, its value contribution, it's going to have to master the identifying the market segment as a key part of its value proposition. So we're going to come back to this, but I wanted just to create a context that all these compasses that we share with you, and indeed the legal compass as well that you haven't yet seen, all fit together in a package, layers of cogs that sit one upon the other. And having an understanding of these different layers is very valuable as you start to see the synergy between the different things that we put in front of you. So to remind us of what natural energy is, natural energy reflects the ways that we naturally think and operate, and most easily we observe it in critical moments. We will always respond on our natural energy. A critical moment is really a stress point. It's a point where we have to make a decision, or we have to take action, or we have to not take action, but it's a point where we make a decision. Now think about the decisions that you've already made in your simulation processes. You're under pressure, you've got to make a decision as a director, and under pressure you make that decision, and how you will have experienced that around the table you would have made decisions in your first board meeting in alignment with your natural energy, because under pressure we don't have time to think, we just act, and we will act from what is most natural to us in that moment. So as a reminder, natural energy, there are 4 types of natural energy. Activating energy, which is all about accelerating and igniting change, very dynamic. Inspiring energy kindles the growth in others. It's warming and nurtures and grows people, focuses on building people up. Sustaining energy is all about bringing others' ideas to life, sustaining, nurturing, and growing things, and caring for the idea. And then tempering energy is refining and improving through analysis and precision, detailed data, detailed words, specific, focused application. Like the organizational sword that cuts through what needs to be done. Each of these 4 natural energies has its own learning styles, its own drivers of growth. We've covered those already, and the different types of questions that they would ask in a critical moment. So what I want to do is then present to you an idea that a company indeed has its own essence. And you have to ask yourself as a director, bearing in mind the business model, bearing in mind natural energy, what is the essence of how this company creates value? What is its purpose? And if you can use the contribution compass and its ideas to really pinpoint the business model and its natural energy, it's a powerful thing, because it starts to help us unlock where we are out of alignment with our focus, where our team is out of alignment, and what we have to do to be in the zone of flow with the very essence and personality of the company itself. So to take a couple of steps back, one of the things that I personally have observed and theoretically understand, so let's see how you feel about this, is that when you start a new company, usually the personality of the company is an extension of the founder. Largely because it's normally start a business, you're actually, for all intents and purposes, self-employed. As you add team members, what tends to happen is the founder attracts more of him or herself, because like seeks like. We want to be with people that get us. And so we tend to, unless we're being conscious of how we build up teams, we tend to attract people who are like us, and we build up these teams that are very imbalanced in a particular way. And at a point, a company becomes its own thing. It's no longer the founder. It has its own life. It has its own needs, and can sometimes go in a direction that's different from the founder, and that's where you have, some challenges with growing a business to the next level. And so a company profile, when there's enough time and effort that's been invested into growing a company, it becomes its own thing and has its own personality. So what I'd like to do is share with you some ideas of how to think about the 8 personalities linked to the contribution compass as a guideline and as a means of insight for you to think about the business model, the value proposition, and the personality of the companies on which you serve. If you can really get to grips with the personality of the company, you're able to understand with a lot more clarity the kinds of decisions you should be making related to the business model itself. So remember this, these are 3 concepts we're plugging together: business model, management compass, and contribution compass. So let's go through the 8. If we start with Catalyst and we say what kind of business model is a Catalyst company, remembering Catalyst accelerates and ignites change, naturally you'll find companies that are focused on innovation, design, product development. So in other words, a company that creates its value through the quality or the uniqueness or the innovation of its product. Okay. So Apple is a great example of a company that is a product focused design innovation product, as is things like Tesla. So if that is the type of company that you have, identifying the market as a segment is really critical, as an example. So this might be the particular essence, and this has its own set of focuses in terms of what does this team need to be that's driving a product development, design, innovation focused business. If we think about a champion business, what would be the personality of a champion business? What would their path of value creation be? It would be a business that is focused on building value through branding and marketing activities. So the way that the company accelerates its business model is through branding and marketing. And so that would be an organization where brand building and development, reputation, marketing activities, communication, PR are all critical to the development of the company's value. Virgin Group being an absolutely fantastic example of a brand carried throughout a number of different operating entities. You can immediately see the difference between a champion company, which is branding and marketing value, and a catalyst company, which is about product value. Different focus, different path of value creation. What might a coach company be involved in? And so a coach company creates value through growth and engagement of the team and the customer base. So in other words, it grows value through growing the family and building up teams and people. And certainly, carrying through from Tony Hsieh is a brilliant example of a coach profile. Zappos.com is a company that creates its value through customer relationships and through internal relationships, through culture. That is how the biggest way it creates value. It doesn't do that through financial precision and analysis and efficiency. No, it does that through the caliber of the relationships that it creates. Very different focus, again, to the champion, which is always focusing on the branding and marketing value creation path. Let's look at a connector. How might a connector create value as a connector builds bridges? Well, the thing about the connector is it really is a bridge between people and operational excellence. And in particular, it would be a business that focuses on leveraging its value through partners, connections, and its social capital. This is a business that accelerates value through its market relationships. Rather than customer and internal relationships, this is about market partners and market relationships and social capital. Facebook and Coursera are brilliant examples, and Coursera is, if you haven't yet worked with Coursera, is an online education platform. So the word platform is often associated with a connector business, and as a platform it plugs together the best universities in the world and makes courses accessible to those who can't afford Harvard and Penn State Uni. So these are businesses where they literally are able to create the platform and to connect businesses together. Typically you'll find even a recruitment agency would be a good example of a connector business where your value is created by the breadth and the quality of the connections you have into the marketplace, both in terms of candidates and in client companies. So, all right, so what is the custodian's natural energy? What would it result in a business model? A custodian is a business where it would all be about protecting the assets, about looking after and caring for the assets, the processes, the customer experience, the operational activity, and so that would be a key part of delivery of value of developing that. So a custodian business would focus its value creation on creating certainty and trust and taking away risk. Not so much pure risk, but about taking away the uncertainty of non-rhythmic processes, if that makes sense. So things like cloud data, trust management, and contact centers, where it's all about delivering a reliable service experience, creating trust and credibility, and taking away your stress factor. That would be a custodian who just makes the world right. So an organization with this natural energy would need to focus on building up its excellence in this particular facet. Okay, what would a cultivator business be? All right, cultivators are all about nurturing growth, and they're really, because of their long-term striving for complexity, their big project focus, their focus on creating value of the long term, they would naturally be drawn to managing long-term complexity, risk and asset value, accumulation over time. So in other words, what a business of this type would do, their value proposition would be we hold it for the long term, we slowly increment growth, we support you, we manage risk, we accumulate value over the long term, and we take away the complexity because we're great at managing the long-term complexity, so you don't have to worry about it. So typically, the natural energy of companies like insurance companies, investment houses, asset management firms would all be typical examples of how we create value through this aspect of natural energy. A conductor business, on the other hand, a conductor business, remembering that conduct is all about optimizing the performance, making sure everything's really efficient and slick and activates the value of data. Examples would be companies where the way that they create value, the way that they really maximize their value and their clients' value is through the ability to reduce costs, to maximize production, and to unlock the value of big data. So, accounting firms typically are conductor type value propositions. Sometimes, you find that accounting firms might be something else depending on the unique value proposition of that firm. So we can't be generalist in saying or generalize that all accounting firms are conductor firms. Not necessarily, and there are many cases where I've seen that's completely the opposite. So here, a firm in this nature of a conductor would add value by reducing costs and maximizing output in production and things like unlocking the value of data. So the big Google search engine, obviously an example of that, but some of the the big data companies where we create value through data are another example of that. And of course, any business that helps clients unlock wastage or inefficiencies through a particular gadget or particular production protocol would be an example of a conductor company, how it creates value. And then the eighth profile, the calibrator, which is focused on fine-tuning the instruments. How might a calibrator business unlock value? And really, this is where the platforms words comes in. It is about systems and platforms. So businesses that create value by leveraging other businesses through a system or a platform. The epitome of this type of value creation pathway are franchises, where it's a central idea, which might be, initially when the idea is created, it is more of a catalyst idea. It's about the product. And once you have a system or platform that can duplicate that product, the business model is no longer about the product, but actually about the platform. And think about if that's how your business creates value, it also helps you focus around where you pay your attention, because it's no longer about extensive product development necessarily, but around extensive platform development. It's not about extensive people frameworks, but about the platform. So understanding the natural energy of the company really helps you to leverage up your intention and focus around what's important. And when you think about where you're going to place, short resources, make sure you place them in the actual business model itself. So this really does help to clarify and focus on the path of value creation. How do we deliver, capture, and create value? What is the business model? And therefore, what is the personality of this business? What we find when we do team assessments and we look at boards or executive teams or management teams, we often find that there is either a natural alignment. So a coach company will have a coach team, which is great. It's okay to have a little bit of imbalance that's aligned with the natural energy of the company itself. If there's a very extreme balance at that level, it's a challenge because decisions won't be as robust as they could be. And sometimes we find businesses where the team is completely at odds with the natural energy of the company, and I would say that that would be a case where there's some dysfunction in terms of what the company is really there to do and the team that currently is in place to lead it into the next step of its journey. So interesting to reflect and think about this process. It's not about having the right answer, it's about the journey of thinking and interrogating the business model. That is where the value lies and the insight that comes through that that heavy thinking work in terms of unlocking understanding. So the other second aspect of this is once we understand this idea of a company profile and the profile of the business model that you're concerned with, the second thing is recognizing that there are different stages of growth that a company goes through. We call this the company life stage. As we as human beings go through, a number of different stages in life, from youngsters to, late teens to young adult to, as we go through our stages, our needs and our focus and what is important changes. And so too does it occur for a company. So the question we ask is, what stage of growth is your company in, the company that you're a director on, and what is the best approach for that particular stage? So you might have a particular personality, or maybe you're a coach business, but you might be in a conductor phase, and what does that mean? So very briefly, I want to just go through these 8 stages as a way of just bringing up that understanding. Our first stage on the catalyst side is what we call a proven concept stage. So this is where the business starts. It has a proven concept, and its goal in the catalyst stage is to develop the idea, develop the product, and prove that you can produce it and you can sell it and make a profit. So that's the proven concept phase, and usually in startup businesses stay in this proven concept for quite a while before they're ready to move on to the next stage. What's important about this process is what we've observed is that very often, if you don't understand the stage you're in, you can try and build a business out of stage. So what happens, people create the proven concept and they're like, great, I'm going to franchise this, and they go straight to the wrong phase, and they try and get to a calibrated phase when they haven't gone through all the rest. So the next stage along the journey is what we call market awareness. So you've now got a proven concept. Now it's about telling people out in the world about what you have to sell and creating a pull in the market to buy the product. So here we're taking the idea we've created and we're selling it, and we're creating traction, and we're focusing on building our traction through sales. So that's the market awareness phase. The next one, the coach phase, is all about building an effective team. So we've got pull in the market, we've got sales, we've got a message out there that's drawing attention. Now we have to focus our attention on building an effective team to deliver on that. This is not about, we don't start worrying about a team until we've got sales, because of course you need a team to make sales. It's about where the main focus of your intention and your investment is happening at each particular stage, and understanding that you only really focus on investing heavily in building a team when you've got a draw of sales to start being able to recruit those teams. Okay, the next phase is called the connector phase, and that's where we start building market connections. We start building alliances and partnerships and joint ventures and relationships out in the market to help us achieve what we want to do, the next stage of growth. We can't go from market awareness to partner connections till we have a team to deliver. So there is about going through a process of building partner connections. The custodian phase is all about grounding all of those 4 initial stages into a sustainable operation. So we have an idea, we have sales, we have a team that delivers, we've got connections in the marketplace to help us, and now we've got an operating team that can exist without, the continuous catalyst energy. So usually this might be a business that can now function on its own without the founder. It has operations and processes and protocols, and it delivers on the promise to the customer, which is what the custodian energy is all about. Once we have a sustainable operation, we now start building the asset, increasing the asset value in the cultivator stage. That means that we're increasing the value of the business. In other words, if we had to value the business, it now has more value than what it did in the proven concept phase, because it's gone through all these areas. And now our intention as a business is, now we've got our sustainable operations, things are ticking along. Now it's about building the value of the asset itself, which is the value of the business itself, is the cultivator phase. The conductor phase says we've built up the value of the asset. Now we are focusing on building up the return on the asset, which means the return to shareholders in profitability, in actually creating a flow of cash that's building up the reservoir that we are now generating cash off the asset. So cultivate is more about concerning about the asset value itself, the value of what we have. Conductor phase is saying, what is the return we're now getting on this increasing asset? And then the final stage, the calibrator stage, is all about then translating that into a duplicable system. So now we've come around the circle, we've grounded it into a system. And remember, system is not just about IT, it's about a systemic thinking infrastructure, and a duplicable system is a business model that we can duplicate somewhere else, or we can duplicate on a higher level. And it's about grounding everything into a system that literally functions and drives itself. Okay, we've gone through all these journeys, we anchor that growth in a duplicable system. And now when we open the next door on the next round, if you can imagine you're going around a mountain, we've now done eight sections of this journey on this elevation. We've now got a door that opens to a higher level. We were leveling up in gaming terms. And now we go back to the catalyst phase. We develop the next level of the business. Perhaps it's a new product range, perhaps it's a new dimension to what it is that we're trying to do. We now add a new proven concept layer and we start the process all over again. So the company life stages are very useful. And what they really do is they help us to understand that you climb a mountain by putting one foot in front of the other. You cannot go from a proven concept to a duplicable system in one go. It will miss all the components that will give it life and sustainability and build an asset that you can leverage that can generate ongoing returns. In understanding the company profile and the stage of growth, it really is a powerful way of really getting to grips with the business model and the cycles that a business goes through, and understanding the systemic nature of building up a business in stages, and understanding the trigger points of when do we know we have a proven concept, when do we know we have market attraction through sales, when do we know we have an effective team, and building up things in the right way. Very powerful concept, and I really trust this adds a lot of value to you as a director in the boardroom in interrogating the business model and understanding what it takes to take those journeys around the mountain as you go through those cogs, as you go up through the journey to the summit at the top. Thank you so much.